Good evening. I'm calling to order the Housing Authority of City of Salem for January 27th, 2025. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Tigan?
Present.
Commissioner Matthews?
Here.
Commissioner Gwen?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Present.
Commissioner Nordyke? Present. Commissioner Varney?
Here.
Resident Commissioner Villegas? Absent. Okay, and Chair Nishioka.
I'm here. Thank you. Before I begin, I just want to let people that may not know, this evening we have 3 meetings. So this is the Salem Housing Authority, then we'll adjourn it, there'll be another meeting, and then we'll get to City Council. That's just so referenced, because it gets confusing when the gavel keeps closing a meeting and you're going, wait a second. So that's just, for this evening, I have asked Commissioner Matthews to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Also this evening, we don't have the Vice Chair, which was Commissioner Phillips. He's no longer with us. We'll have re-elections in February for that. I have asked Commissioner Gwynn to serve as Vice Chair Pro Tem. So, Commissioner Gwynn, do you have a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Any discussion? Will the recorder please, it's been moved by Commissioner Gwynn, seconded by Commissioner Varney. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tigan?
Oh, I went right to
Aye.
it, didn't
Commissioner Matthews?
Aye.
Commissioner Gwen?
I? Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke?
Aye.
Commissioner Varney?
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas absent. Chair Nishioka.
Aye. Thank you. So there were no additions, there's no public comment, and so Commissioner Gwynn, to your motion.
Well, we already voted.
We already voted, yes, I
Yeah.
did it out of order.
But the
So you're going to read it.
The consent calendar consisted of the December 9th, 2024 draft Salem Housing Authority minutes.
Thank you. So we've already called the roll, and is everybody still in agreement? Thank you. Forgive me. I wrote it up. I just didn't follow it. All right, so there's no special order of business, and we are now to information reports, and I will give the floor to Ms. Utes.
Good evening, I'm Nicole Utes. I'm the Housing Administrator for Salem Housing Authority. And tonight I wanted to report on the PIT count. I know that's been a conversation. It's called the point in time count that's done biannually, sometimes annually. It is required biannually. Our agency has been a part of this year's. They've been out counting since last Wednesday. And as of tomorrow, Tuesday, January 28th, they will be holding the share event at the Wallace Marine Park from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you do happen to show up or join them, you'll see lots of our staff volunteers from different departments within the agency. There will be several of them out there counting, as well as providing meals and resources to those who come in attendance. The count is underway. They have stated that they believe they've reached out to about 600 or 700 so far, and there's several more days to go. So we're happy to report on the PIT count going smoothly. In your program management report, you'll see a large section on Shop with a Cop, which we are highlighting this time around. It was a wonderful event. It occurs annually. I've actually been involved in this for nearly 20 years in we started with 25, and this year we helped and assisted over 400 youth from our different various programs. The reason that I want to highlight this is the cost-saving and innovative efforts of our staff that came up with a new procedure to make this happen at a much much less cost to our agency. Instead of mailing out individually to the mail, which can become troublesome and people getting delivery, mail returned, all the time going in and out of our agency for the mail delivery and processing that all by hand. They came up with a creative solution. Instead of the $2,500 in postage that we would typically have to pay out to make this happen for our youth, we were able to cut that cost drastically by a program that does this through a mail system at approximately $300 that we can now use annually from going on out. It actually provided a QR code for each of those household members to easily sign in and sign. They were able to sign all their photo consents. It streamlined this process so much that we were able to actually sign up all of our slots within 3 hours. The need was so great. Keeping in mind when we say that, we're mailing out to over 3,000 households on a typical basis. So 400 just touches a minor portion of the youth that we can serve with that event, but we're happy to help make that happen annually. And I will say that there was probably 10 Salem Housing Authority staff member there. They also do majority of the coordination to make that happen with all the other programs that feed into this process. So time and cost savings, both valuable in our staff time and the expenses related to the event. We just want to give kudos to all of them for their innovation and creative ways to make those measures happen. I will say that you'll also see in there that our customer service is still running at a level that could quantify to about 7 FTE full-time employees at our front desk. Those increases and largely were a part of the 38 placements that happened in December. That means 38 households were placed into either our homes or Mahonia Crossings or our project-based vouchers. That's an incredible amount, and the dedication and time by our staff that it took through the holidays in shifts of making sure that they could have time off with their family, but we also being there what felt like round the clock to ensure that we got people the keys, the leases were signed, all of the paperwork. And for those of you who aren't aware, it's like a mortgage to get into our properties, and it's very complex to make that happen, not only for us, but we were able to help assist in filling Mahonia Crossings completely. There was a lot of kudos and celebration. The families that were served during that process were so excited to be able to have a home over their head. With that said, we also want to congratulate Arches Nest. We were there at the grand opening event for the shelter serving families. This is very meaningful to us as every day we have more and more families in need and more families that we're hearing about that are in cars or doubled up with families, and we're seeing that need grow increasingly. So congratulations to them, and we look forward to working with them through referral process. For those of you who are not aware or have not seen, Salem Housing Authority was awarded 25 additional veterans-assisted supportive housing vouchers for our area. That means 25 more veteran-related households will be able to be served. All of those referrals will come from the VA, and that does equal out to be about $233,000 additional in voucher funding for our agency. I wanted to say that we're happy to report that the final cohort of Homeless Rental Assistance Program has all graduated, and they are now onto the voucher program, and we can successfully say that they are all still remaining housed through that very successful cohort program. We do track the statistics to ensure that they are still remaining housed through that program. Also, I wanted to state that in 2024 calendar year, there was nearly $35 million in housing assistance payments that went out of the Salem Housing Authority, equaling to be about 3,210 households on a monthly basis that were able to remain housed with the assistance of that program. That does take a team of individuals from our finance to our Section 8 and all the moving parts, but that's quite a large number, and we're proud to be able to serve all of them. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Commissioner Nordyke, go right ahead.
Thank you so much. I was just trying to take some notes, Director Utes. You said, and I see it in here in our packet, nearly $35 million in housing assistance payments, which is amazing. And then I didn't quite catch it in time. How many households per month is that on average for the?
On average, that's about 3,210 households. That equals out to be anywhere from 9 to 10,000 individuals on a monthly basis.
That's amazing. And is it, and I want to understand how exactly do these payments, can you tell me a little bit more about what these payments do and how they work? Are they a supplement to existing rent? If you could just explain a little bit more, I would be appreciative.
Certainly. So each individual is done or handled differently. They're all ran through our case management program. Their annualized income is taken into consideration, and 30% of their rent is what their portion of payment will be. Our costs have drastically increased through the past years because of the rising rents in our area, which are hampering our ability to use all vouchers allocated to us because the cost of rents are far exceeding the number of vouchers that we receive. But it's calculated our residents that receive the housing assistance payments are only paying 30% of their monthly income. We pay the remaining portion to each of the different landlords.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. I want to send a special thanks to your staff working so diligently through the month of December. It made probably so many people feel that month pretty special when they were placed in their new residences. So thank you very much for that. If there's no other questions, then the meeting is adjourned.
I'd like to call to order this meeting of the City of Salem Urban Renewal Agency for January 27th, 2025. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Tigan?
Here.
Board Member Nishioka?
Here.
Board Member Matthews?
Here.
Board Member Gwen?
Here.
Board Member Brown?
Present.
Board Member Nordyke?
Here.
Board Member Varney?
Here.
Chair Julie Hoy.
Here. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight?
We do not.
Thank you. Do we have folks signed up for public comment?
No one signed up.
Okay, thank you. On to the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar for the Urban Renewal Agency.
Second.
Okay, with that, will the recorder please call the roll? Is that right?
Board Member Tigan?
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka?
Aye.
Board Member Matthews?
Aye.
Board Member Gwen?
Aye.
Board Member Brown?
Aye.
Board Member Nordyke?
Aye.
Board Member Varney?
Aye.
Chair Julie Hoy.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we have no action items, correct? We have no public hearings, no special orders of business. Any information reports? Yes, would you like to say something, Kristen Rutherford?
Yeah, Kristen Rutherford, Director of Community Planning and Development. I just want to provide everybody with a heads up that this is the time of year that our folks in finance bring forward du jour bonds for approval. That'll be coming forward, I believe, the second meeting in February. And du jour bonds are a necessary requirement of using urban renewal in Oregon or something similar to du jour bonds. because we cannot collect and then directly spend urban renewal tax increment. We have to have a debt instrument. So if you do have any questions about that process, I'd be happy to follow up separately with you.
Are there any questions? Okay, with that, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the sorry, let's see here, where am I? Yeah, Salem City Council for January 27th, 2025. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Tigan.
Present.
Counselor Nishioka. Counselor Matthews.
Here.
Counselor
Here.
Matthews? Yeah. Counselor Gwen.
Here.
Counselor Brown.
Present.
Counselor Nordyke.
Here.
Counselor Barney. Here. Mayor Julie Hoy.
Here, thank you. Okay, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We do. I move to, right?
Counselor, you can just say, I move additions, then after the motion's been seconded, you can explain what they are.
Thank you, and we'll get this down. I move for the additions.
Second.
To your motion.
To your motion?
Thank you. So we have several additions. We have 1.4A, addition was added to the agenda. We have addition 1.4B was added to the agenda. We have a revision on 3.3A. The revision is following new language was added to the issue and recommendation to the staff. And City Council's authorization of the MOU does not establish or imply support or opposition to the possible casino located within the Salem area. The second one is on 5B. This report was added to the special orders of business to provide an opportunity for discussion. 7.1B, revise the issue and recommendation section of the staff report were revised to remove the language of first reading. That concludes the additions or revisions.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Brown.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Tigan.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Matthews.
Aye.
Counselor Gwen.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. And that brings us to council and city manager comment. Anyone have anything they'd like to share? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I just want to say that I know you beat me. Councilor Brown and Councilor Gwynn and I attended the police swearing in today for 2 new police officers who were incredibly young. And it was a very touching ceremony, and they had a huge group coming which were family members. So it was lovely, and I'll let you finish that off.
Councilor Gwynn.
I was going to speak to the same thing. So I've gone to a couple of these where, and some where there were like 5 or 6 people and the room is full. Today there were 2 officers and that room was standing room only. It was awesome. And the really incredible thing is both of those officers, one was 22 and the other was 28. Both of them are Salem, they're from Salem. One graduated from West Salem High School and the other from McKay. So it's just awesome to see our community bringing up folks that want to join our chief and join the force. So it was amazing. My favorite part is always to hear the chief telling the stories of those officers and then to see their family members pinning their badge on for the first time. So it was an awesome experience, and I have said it before, I encourage everyone to go. So thanks.
Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, folks. First of all, I was informed by city staff shortly before our meeting that there is a limited area boil water notice in effect for about 200 homes in the South Salem area. That was due to a brief interruption of water pressure during a mainline repair near the corner of Cunningham Lane and Kerr Street. Public Works crews are preparing door hangers, and they will be going door to door. So affected residents will be receiving those door hangers. This is another great reason to follow the City of Salem's social media feeds and sign up for alerts, because the city wants to do everything it can to notify you if you are in the small population of folks who are affected by a boil water notice. So please pay attention to those social media feeds, because we try to get that information out. And again, that's just 200 or so homes in the area, not all the city. So no need to get on your cell phone right now if that's not in your area. Two other things I want to quickly point out. I attended the retirement reception for Jane Downing at Center for Hope and Safety. Many of us here in Chambers are familiar with Ms. Downing because she has been captaining the ship that is Center for Hope and Safety for many years. And she has come here on many occasions to help us recognize and acknowledge the presence of domestic violence and human trafficking in our area. So she is enjoying her well-earned retirement, and it was a pleasure to be able to go there and to wish her well. And then also, I wanted to say kudos to Councilor Paul Tigan for coming to the open house for Casa Marion County last week. We recently moved into Salem city limits and really have appreciated the warm welcome from the Northeast Neighbors Association and our councilor. Along those lines, I just want to make sure folks are aware, every year, the Oregon Department of Human Services puts out a data book about the foster care system. So here are just a few stats from the year 2023, statewide data on foster youth. In 2023, there were 11,191 confirmed child abuse victims. 979 of those confirmed child abuse victims lived in Marion County. On average, a Marion County foster child spends 25 months in foster care, on average. And there were 7,282 children in Oregon who spent at least one day in foster care. Some things to think about. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. City Manager, did you have something? No. Well, thank you for bringing those facts to light here tonight. I, on a lighter note, had the pleasure of attending the Arches Nest ribbon cutting. I've lived, a lot of you know, I've lived in the same house on Center Street for 34 years, and I've driven by that location too many times to count. And it just feels so right. It's been a lot of different things, and it's designed for families to receive care, so I find that something to celebrate. I attended the All Neighborhood Association meeting, which is always enlightening. You get that sort of all-city feel for what people have going on, at least in a limited time frame. I was at Jane Downing's retirement party. That was fabulous. She received a proclamation last meeting, very well deserved. And then the UGM sock drive, which happened, I think they did over 50 hours of living outside in the Ace Hardware parking lot, collecting socks and raising awareness. So that's all I have. Anybody else? We're going to move on to proclamations. No proclamations. Presentations. We have two presentations this evening. First up is the Siletz Tribal Council Chair, Delores Pigsley, and members of the Siletz Tribal Council. Madam Pigsley, if you would please come to the podium. Thank you for being here. Hit that green. There you go.
Oh, Is it on? You're good. Okay. You can hear me. So we're here tonight because of the MOU that we've worked out with the city. It's something we've worked on for over 3 years, and we're glad we got to the finish line, and we hope that you will pass it as is without any further amendments. And I'm here to ask for your support to do that tonight.
Are you open to questions if
Yes.
anyone has any? Anyone have questions?
Be happy to answer any questions.
Seeing none. Thank you so much for being here.
We appreciate
Yeah.
being here. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have a report from the Public Works Department. Mr. Brian Martin, please come up and tell us the good news.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Brian Martin, Public Works Director. I have an update here tonight on the West Salem sewer repair. But what this is really about is thanking the hardworking folks that helped us get through the repair itself. You'll see them all sitting along the back row over here and occupying a few seats. They took a very difficult situation that happened the day after Christmas and continued for 2 days thereafter. Some of them worked 24-hour shifts. Some of those that worked 24-hour shifts went home and got sleep and were back in 6 or 7 hours. They worked around the clock to really help us get through what was an emergency for us. When both of our force mains failed, we had nowhere for our West Salem sewage to go, and at that point it began discharging into the farm fields in West Salem. And obviously that is not a good situation. Because of the heavy rains, the flows were very high, about 14.3 million gallons a day. So it was critical to get that repair fixed as quickly as possible. Before I call them up so that we can thank them, I just want to give a little background on what that repair looked like and how we went about getting that work done. So this is a quick breakdown of the timeline. December 26, 3 p.m., we learned that a 24-inch force main is ruptured. December 27th, 10 a.m., we learned the 18-inch force main had ruptured. So basically, at that point, we had no sewer service from West Salem. Shortly thereafter, we suspended operation of the West Salem pump station, and then it was at 8 a.m. on December 28th, Saturday morning, we were able to get the 18-inch force main repaired. And then later that evening, at about 8:30 p.m., we got the 24-inch force main restored. So all in all, from the point of the first rupture until both lines were repaired, a little over 53 hours, which was pretty amazing. So for those that wonder where did this happen, what you see on this map here is, I want to highlight the line in yellow. So down at the bottom of the screen, there's a PS, that's the West Salem pump station. That is just to the east of Wallace Road. The development just a little bit to the upper left is Salem Town. Those two force mains cross under the Willamette River and then wind their way through Kaiser until they get to our wastewater treatment plant, which is at the very top of the page. The red circle is where the ruptures occurred. The photo on the left here really tells the story of what happened. The pipe on the left, you see the 3 holes in it. That is highly corroded pipe. About all that was left holding that pipe together was the earth on top of it. And when the high flows hit, actually through the 26th, it actually blew that pipe open. As they were uncovering that pipe to try and repair it, on the morning of the 27th, you see that's actually a city employee there with a television camera in the pipe at his feet. That was the 18-inch pipe that also ruptured. So that was a point in time when we had no sewer service to West Salem. On the right of the screen, those are folks from Emery Construction, and we're going to talk about them here in a little bit, working down that pipeline, trying to find solid pipe to tie into. Obviously, we couldn't tie in where the breaks had occurred, and so it was very concerning at that point in time. Are we going to find solid pipe? Unfortunately, we did. How do you make those repairs? Well, you got to cut the bad pipe out at the location so you can tie into the good pipe. Amazingly, on Friday the 27th, Emory, working with their suppliers, had the 18-inch pipe delivered. That happened at about 4 p.m. on Friday. The 24-inch pipe, I believe, was delivered about 7 a.m. on Saturday, which was right before the 18-inch pipe got connected. So in all, we had to install 350 feet of 18-inch pipe and 350 feet of 24-inch pipe so that we could tie into something solid. And, you know, being able to not only find, you know, our contractors to be able to get out here on short notice during the holiday season, having suppliers being able to supply us the pipe, different folks supplying flanges and nuts and bolts, and, you know, fortunately, Emory and Sons Construction, and that photo to the right, it's hard to see, but there's what's called a fusion machine, where you take these big pieces of HDE pipe and you have to fuse them together to get to the lengths that are correct. So, you know, factor all that in and a bunch of heavy rain through the night hours as well, and it was quite an accomplishment. You know, back in the office, we had our folks working on mapping. We had our folks going out with the drones trying to get photos. The picture on the left shows the area where the sewage was discharging in the farm field. Having that drone program really helped us evaluate and analyze how much area got contaminated with the spill. And then again, we got some great pictures there of them installing the pipe on that right photo. So before I get into the next steps, I want to share the positive attitude that was displayed by all these folks in the field. You know, as we thank them for their work, numerous employees from Emory, they said, any way we can help Salem, we're here for you. And they truly were. They had families visiting in town that they were away from. Ryan Ward, who's there, had his daughter in his pickup truck for a couple hours, I think, one of the days while he was out there trying to help us get things done. So it was all hands on deck, and they really stepped up for us. Not to mention all of our wonderful city employees who are also doing the same thing, working around the clock. I think Rob Keller took the first 24-hour shift. Quite amazing. So where are we going next? Well, we have to plan for a permanent repair. So you saw the pipes that came out of the ground. That's a temporary solution to get us through the winter season. We're going to figure out how we repair that in the summer season coming up. We're looking at technologies to actually do pipe condition surveys. So we really need to see the thicknesses of the walls of the existing pipes along those lines. And then we'll have to evaluate that pipe for additional repairs and then allocate funds in the CIP so that we can go ahead and make those repairs. The good news is there was solid pipe out there, so I think there's specific locations where it's corroding based on the hydrogen sulfide gases being in high areas. So I think there's a lot of good pipe left. So it's not a complete rebuild, we hope, but we need to do some more analysis. So here's what we're really here for. This is our thank you to Emory and Sons Construction, you know, their suppliers, United Rentals, Ferguson Waterworks, McDonald Industrial, Hertz Rentals, and all the city staff from engineering, operations, and administration. I would like to call them up so that we can get a picture with the mayor and thank them for their work. With Emory and Sons, we have Ryan Ward, the project manager. Come on up, Ryan. Justin Johnson, the superintendent. Jeff Schnepp, the foreman. And then from city, we've got Mark Bechtel, our assistant director. Dwayne Barnes, our operations manager. Nitin Joshi, our environmental services and technology manager. Rochelle Rigotti, worked with the GIS drone team. Daniel Carter did the same. Steve Hall with environmental services. Richard Pinkston with environmental services. Gerald couldn't be here tonight. Rich Pranger, I don't know that I saw him tonight. Steve Brigger with pumps and controls. Tyler Russell with our sewer repair crews. Connor Fleetwood, who was helping us clean sewers. And then with the engineering team, we had Alan Dannon, our city engineer, James Winslow, our assistant city engineer, Robert Keller, our project manager, and Chris Kudervin, our project engineer. So thank you, folks.
Loves the limelight.
Yes.
Let's see it right here.
Thank you.
Can I say something real quick? Absolutely. Thank you very much. On behalf of Emery and Sons Construction, we just want the city of Salem to know that we get to do this. So it was our pleasure to be a part of it. The city's response was amazing. The support that we had was amazing. The suppliers, of course, we've already talked about. But just know that we do enjoy what we do, and we get to do it. So thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Brian Martin, don't go away. I think Councillor Gwynn might have had a question for you. But before you ask, I just want to say these are the kind of heroes that go so far unsung when they crawl around in the cold and get into those spaces that nobody else would want to be in. And you are more appreciated than you know. So thanks for getting us back up and running, all of you. Councillor Gwynn.
So my question was, if memory serves me correctly, was it Emery and Sons that also helped us in the fire, that field fire?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
So you guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I would add, when you talk about public-private partnerships, this is really how it can work with two teams working together. So thank you. And I guess I will share you don't all have to stay here for the whole meeting, but you're more than welcome to if you'd like to.
Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Not necessarily a question, but I do want to just show some more appreciation to this team. I think it was maybe a month ago, we were with you, Director gave us a tour, and I recall asking about how old some of our pipes were, and you said that they were very, very old. And our conversation went to what happens if something breaks. And so something broke. And I want to say personally that I appreciate you, we appreciate you, because you are doing something that a lot of us probably would not sign up to do, regardless of how much you paid us. We're not going to do that. So thank you for taking the time to do it during the holiday season to take care of all of our residents. So it definitely means a lot. So thank you.
Anyone else? Nordyke.
I echo everything Councillor Brown said. And why is it that these water mains always seem to break at the worst possible time? It seems to be, it's never on like a beautiful summer afternoon, midweek. Oh no. And so thank you. I appreciate that. It's a challenge with a city with this kind of topography to keep our water flowing at all times and our electricity going at all times. So thank you so much.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move on to public comment. Let's see here. As your name is called, please come forward to the podium. As you begin your remarks, please state your name and your address or ward for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. When you have 1 minute left, the light on the podium will flash yellow. The light will turn red when your time has expired. I'd like to call Kathleen George to the podium.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Kathleen George, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. We appreciate the opportunity to be before you tonight and want to acknowledge the letter that the tribe has submitted to the City Council, and thank you for your time and attention to that and for our requests. We found out about the MOA that's on the agenda tonight really very late in the game, very, very late last week, and have done our best to review it. We understand that there may be some proposals on the table to make some amendments to that. We ask you to consider our entire letter, but essentially it boils down to, if this MOA is not an endorsement of a new casino in the Salem area, our request would be that the MOA explicitly state that. You're probably all aware that there are proposals for a new very large gaming facility, and if this MOA is not about that, we would simply ask that the MOA reflect that. And if it could also be that additional time is needed to consider that, then that would be appropriate as well. But that is our ask of the City Council tonight, and we thank you for your time, and I'm more than happy to follow up in any way that makes sense in your review and decision on this matter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to call Mark Wigg.
Hello, Mark Wigg. I'm in Ward 2. And on that memorandum of agreement with the tribes, I just read through it as fast as I could, but I did not see anything that addresses our most urgent need, which is affordable housing. If they indeed have a casino, that's going to be hundreds of jobs that pay minimum wage or about that. And you can't afford an apartment in Salem at that wage. So they're adding to the burden of not having enough housing. Can we add an amendment that asks for support for housing in Salem? Because that is our most urgent need. I was just out today talking to a couple of women in wheelchairs on the street, older women, and they can't afford housing. We need it. Add it. You've been on this for 3 years. You can do another week or so. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. That's all we have for public comment. We're on to the consent calendar. Councilor Nishioka, may I have a motion for the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Tigan?
Can we clarify, the last agenda that I have still has the Memorandum of Understanding with the Siletz Tribe concerning the city services to the Siletz Tribal Trust land. Has that moved from the consent calendar, or is it still, or is it under action items?
I'll defer to the city attorney.
It is still on the consent calendar. Any counselor can make a request to remove it from that.
I would like to make that request.
So under the rules, the item is removed from the consent calendar. It'll be placed under special orders of business tonight. It's not a motion. It's a simple request. Doesn't need action by council.
Thank you. So we need to approve the rest of the consent agenda?
So the council president will then make a motion for the consent agenda with that poll.
Okay.
I move to approve the consent calendar with the pull of item 3.3A.
Second. Go ahead.
I'm here to help.
And now the council president will speak to the consent calendar.
Okay, Council President, would you please speak to the consent calendar?
Thank you. So the consent calendar will consist of 3.1A, the minutes, the draft minutes from our meeting January 13th, 2025. Item number 3.3B, which is to authorize the city manager to execute the attached IGA between the City of Salem and Marion County for State Street South Side Sidewalk Improvement Project. And item 3.3C, which is approve a mid-year adjustment to allocate $1.44 million from Parks SDC's unspecified to the Gear Park Skate Park and Pathway Improvements Project budget. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Barney.
Aye.
Counselor Tigan.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Matthews.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Moving on to public hearings. We have 2 items to cover this evening. First up, item 4A, and my favorite solid waste guy, Ryan Zink, is going to present.
The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider amending commercial medical waste collection rates and charges. The hearing will begin with a staff presentation, followed by testimony from interested persons. Individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy, City Council. My name is Ryan Zink, the Franchise Administrator for the City of Salem. Tonight we are holding a public hearing to consider an adjustment to commercial medical waste rates. The recommendation tonight is to adopt resolution number 2025-1, which would amend commercial medical waste rates, rates and charges. Just a little bit of history with this. In October, the Solid Waste Committee met to discuss the proposal, met again in November, and at that time in November, on the 21st, made a recommendation that the proposal be moved forward to council for approval. And I just want to be clear that tonight's proposal, if approved, would replace the previously approved rates for 2025. So before I go into the details of the proposal, I'd like to just kind of set the stage, if you will, provide a little bit of context, kind of back a little bit of history of what does commercial medical waste rates mean. I think we all understand curbside rates. We set our trash out, that gets picked up. This is a completely different set of services that are provided here in Salem. So Marion Environmental Services is a subsidiary company to our haulers, or Mid-Valley Garbage Recycling Association. So that subsidiary company is who provides collection of medical waste to the numerous medical facilities, institutions, and other businesses that we have here in Salem that produce what we call medical waste. Briefly, kind of about Marion Environmental Services. So they provide 3 different levels of service. Low volume, which is a collection of 1 to 59 boxes per month. So these are kind of the types of customers that you have, if you will. You have high volume, those customers that produce more than 60 boxes per month. And then you have hospital collection. All this is done with 1 box truck and 1.5 FTE running 2 routes. One route is that it's kind of the outside circle. I don't know if you can see it from where you're at, but I'll just kind of read off some of these. And I have to say that when I was putting together this list of all the different businesses that they stop at, I was actually surprised at all the number of and types of businesses that produce medical waste. So we have the obvious ones of like doctor's offices, dental offices, clinics, that type of thing, dialysis centers, retirement homes, tattoo parlors, veterinary clinics, schools, Department of Corrections, pharmacies, medical labs, and then our own haulers' offices as well. So quite a large group and quite a variety of different types of businesses. The inside circle, that half FTE, runs a second route for all of the Salem Health Network, and so that's kind of a very brief description of what we're talking about when we say medical waste and medical waste collection. If we are looking at, don't expect you to look at this, but if you were to go out to the adopted rate schedule, there's one page that has medical waste rates, and that's on page 4, section 7. Again, don't expect you to see that or look at it. I'll have a blown-up view of this in a moment, or a little bit later, but it's this top section that is specifically about the rates. The bottom part is supplies and boxes and bags and some stuff like that. The very top part is what we're specifically talking about today. So if we already have rates approved for 2025, why are we talking about this today? Well, in September of this last year, Marion County received a notification from Reworld Marion. As a reminder, Reworld Marion is the waste to energy incinerator facility that all medical waste and much of the municipal solid waste or waste here in Salem went to for incineration. Marion County received a notification that Reworld was going to be closing and no longer accepting waste as of December 31st. You may have also heard in the news recently, or in December, that Marion County extended their contract another 6 months up through June 30. The entire purpose of that extension is to allow Reworld to burn the remaining material on site and to close operations, basically to allow them to continue under their existing permit to be able to close up shop, if you will. My understanding is that by the end of this week, January 31st, all incineration will cease. So there will be no more burning after the end of this week. So again, a little bit of history of kind of the rates for disposal of medical waste. Pre-2017, haulers, or more specifically Marion Environmental Services, was paying $67.45 per ton of medical waste. 2017, that increased to $87.45, and this is the same rate that all other trash was the cost of disposal for all other trash at Reworld. Starting in 2024, however, the Marion County Commissioners, who set this rate, started moving the cost or the disposal rate for medical waste closer to market rate. Historically, this has been very, very low compared to other disposal sites or disposal options for medical waste. You see, they even adopted a rate for 2024, $150, 2025, and then 2026 at $75 increase per year, planning for some future change there. However, that plan has been kind of waylaid, if you will, with the closure of Covanta. These rates are assuming that that waste is going to, sorry, I said Covanta. They changed their name to Reworld, so I'm still trying to retrain my brain on that one. So taking this, so what's next? What are the options? So there's a lot of numbers on here, but I'm going to just start at the top and work our way down. The top are the exact same numbers I just showed you on the previous slide. 2025 and 2026, those rates at $225 and $300 per ton, no longer an option. The market rate, if you will, through the next obvious solution is actually taking the types of waste that you have. There's pathological waste and non-pathological waste and sharps, and having to separate those and dispose of them in separate ways. The sharps and non-pathological waste is $840 per ton for disposal. The pathological waste is $4,200 per ton for disposal. Comparing that to what we were paid in 2024 at $150 a ton. That is a huge increase. I'm not going to, just be clear, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat or downplay the impact of what we're talking about here today. Luckily, another option, so our haulers, Marion County, and the City of Salem working together looked at 3 possible options. Through that process, and then Marion County Commissioners approved a final solution, which is what we have at the bottom here, the company called BioClean. Actually, our local company here in Oregon, and they were the low-cost option that both sharps and pathological waste, they'll dispose that at $16 per box. So this is a little different methodology in terms of the pricing. Rather than a per ton cost, it's a per box. Most of the boxes are a 35-gallon box. They weigh about 28 pounds is kind of the average weight. So based on that average weight and the cost of $16 per box, that's approximately, I'm just going to call $1,150 a ton. There I've got listed $1,143 was my actual calculation. That's a 662% increase over the 2024 rate that was being paid in this last year, over that $150 a ton. So just a real quick display here. How does that impact Marion Environmental Services, the company who is providing this service to our community? On the left is the percentage of the cost of disposal to all expenses for that company. It's approximately 13.4% of total expenses was disposal. With the new rate, which they are paying now as of January 1st, is a little over 50% of their total cost. That's a huge impact to that company. So, what's the ask, the proposal? As compared to, well, let me back up. In 2024, or for the year 2025, we had previously, council had previously approved rates of a 2.8, 6.5, and 14.3%, a combined total of 8.4% increase for 2025. That is currently approved, and if tonight's resolution is not adopted, that is what the rate increase will be for 2025 over last year. The ask tonight is a 52% for low volume, 72% for high volume, and 168% for Salem Hospital. Now you may be asking, why is the Salem Hospital so much more? The one big difference about Salem Hospital is that that rate does not include the boxes, the supplies, so a larger portion of that cost is disposal. So looking at the kind of that same graph we had before, when there's a larger percentage of that cost is disposal, then there's a larger increase just because of the math there. So from a actual rate perspective, this would be the proposed rates. The first column there is the current, or excuse me, it was last year's rate of 2024. The middle is what was previously approved and would be the rate if the proposal is not approved tonight. And the right-hand side is the rate for either 20 or 35-gallon box for each of those. So I just want to briefly talk about customer notification, because that's going to impact kind of the actual, the final recommendation here. Our code normally asks for or requires a 30-day notification of customers, or to customers, before that rate goes into effect. Normally that is 30 days after the public hearing, which we're holding tonight. The recommendation is that the rate for Salem Hospital goes into effect February 1st. That is because of the huge impact of this rate on Marion Environmental Services, asking that go into effect sooner so that they can start recouping some of those costs a little bit sooner. Both Marion Environmental Services and city staff have been in contact with Salem Hospital staff, allowing them time to ask questions, comment, so basically we gave them notification prior to tonight saying, hey, this is going to be coming. That source separation I talked about earlier, haulers have been talking with them, and they've been working on a plan to ensure that they're able to do that source separation. So the ask tonight is that the rate for Salem Hospital would become effective February 1st. All the others, the outside circle, if you will, all the others customers, would receive the notifications would be going out in the next couple of days for an effective date of March 1st. So I'm going to leave it on this slide. This is my last one. This is the ask, 168% increase for Salem Hospital effective February 1st of 2025. 52% increase for the low volume generators effective March 1st of 2025. And a 72% increase on high volume generators effective March 1st. This concludes my presentation. I, of course, am available for answer any questions after any public comment. We also have a couple gentlemen here representing the haulers and Marion Environmental Services in case there's any questions I can answer.
Thank you, Mr. Zink. We have no one signed up for public testimony on this item. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Teigen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I didn't ask this in advance, so I'm sorry if I'm asking a question you don't have the answer to, but I can just have a question about the folks on that outer ring.
Yeah.
If you have a sense of how much waste they produce, like an average tattoo parlor, I'd never really thought of that, and of course it stands out on your presentation. Are they doing multiple 20-gallon boxes per month, or what? Do you have a sense of some of those, might be like more small businesses?
So my sense in talking with some of the staff who do some of the behind-the-scenes operation of this is that I think most of your tattoo parlors or some of those, a lot of those businesses that may not be a primary medical facility that we think of are in that low-volume batch. So most of them do a 35-gallon just because it makes sense. If they don't have the space for a 35, they may do a 25, and they're doing a couple boxes. Many of these customers maybe only have one box picked up a year or a couple a year, and so that's that low-volume group. Your larger medical offices that may not quite hit that 60-box threshold may still be in that low volume, probably your dentists and some of those. But your other larger medical facilities, I'm certain Kaiser Permanente, as example, would be in your high volume.
Very good, thanks.
Any other questions? Nishioka.
Thank you. Mr. Zink, thank you for all of this information, and especially for the reminder that even though the Reworld has been given that further extension, that they will be finished, finished by, I guess you said the end of this month? By January?
End of this, yes, this week, this month.
The end of this month.
Yep.
And so I know that there was some confusion from some constituents in trying to understand if they would still be open and taking this medical waste, but they are finished. And so no more materials are going there. So thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate that. And I know that this has been in front of the Solid Waste Committee and has been discussed, and it's been a challenge. It's been a challenge for everyone, and I especially feel a lot of angst for those haulers that are taking this, and it's increased their cost tremendously. So I recognize this needs to be done. Thank you.
Dr. Brown.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just out of clarification, Madam President, so you mentioned challenges. Can you share a little bit more about what some of those challenges are or have been in the past?
The challenges of the medical?
Well, you just said, there were some challenges that they recently had.
Well, there have been numerous challenges with solid waste. There's certainly the closing of Reworld, which took the waste from any cleanup from the homeless camps. It took the medical waste. And so now with it closing, everybody has to reshuffle with how to manage that.
Councilor Nishioka, if I may interrupt you, we need to direct our questions to staff at this time.
Okay.
So, sorry to interrupt, but just trying to play by the rules. Any questions for staff?
Mr. Zink, we like playing by the rules. Mr. Zink, so you had said that they'll start getting billed, what is it, March 1 you had said?
Sorry, say it one more time.
March 1, would the outer circle, they'll see their bills on March 1?
Yes.
And do you know the impact that will be for some of the smaller businesses?
On a per box, I can show you what the impact is. We can talk about that. In terms of the impact to each customer, that's going to vary on how many boxes that they have picked up.
Right. The only thing I'll ask is that when we're done here, if I could just see that, because I can't see that circle that had all the nice little colors on it.
Sure.
So
I'd be happy to show you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. So if this incinerator is shutting down for good this week, where's our garbage going after January 31? Just as a general, not just medical waste, but where's it going?
Sure. One of two places, if not both. So immediately in the short term, it's being rerouted to Coffin Butte landfill, which is just north of Corvallis. In the long term, and again, going back to Marion County directs flow, I haven't talked about that with newer councils quite as much. Some of the councilors have been here longer may understand that terminology, but so we have flow control where Marion County directs where the flow of waste within Marion County will go. So very recently, Marion County commissioners approved the transfer of waste, or the flow of waste, to a landfill in the Dalles in Wasco County. And so depending on without getting into too much detail, some of the waste will be going to Coffin Butte, and other waste, the remaining waste, if you will be going to the Dalles. It's put on a truck and shipped out.
So to be clear, this garbage from our city is no longer going to be burned. It's now going to be placed in one of two landfills. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Matthews.
So I had read in the Statesman, I think, that Reworld was still in trying to acquire credits and trying to see if there was some sort of option to be able to stay viable, which very well may not happen. And so, while I understand that this is needed at the moment for being able to kind of move forward from a rate perspective, in the event that, and I also want to call them Covanta because I'm just used to that, but in the event that Reworld does end up being able to remain operational in the future, would we see a rate reduction come back to us?
Yes. So what I'll say is, if the cost of disposal goes down, I'll be right back here saying, hey, in fact, it may actually be more of an information report, because the rates that we set are a not to exceed. And so we'll definitely be in conversations with the haulers on a regular basis, that if things change and the cost of disposal goes down, we'll be asking for and working with them to charge less. And we'll let you know.
Councillor Varney.
Thank you. Which landfill will the medical waste be going to?
That's a great question. So it depends on which type of the medical waste. So the pathological waste will actually be going to a incinerator in Portland. So there's some small scale incinerators for pathological waste in the Portland area. And so that, again, like I mentioned, BioClean is an existing company. They already provide service in Oregon. They're based here in Oregon. And for other service areas, they are already taking the waste to those locations. For the non-pathological waste, like your sharps, gowns, gloves, masks, that type of thing, anything that's non-pathological, will be taken to Boise, Idaho, and where it goes through an autoclave process, which sterilizes it, and then from that point, it goes into a landfill.
Okay, thank you. That helps explain why it's so much more expensive. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Nishioka.
Thank you again. So just to be clear, Mr. Zink, the not to exceed, is that not to exceed 168% or a certain amount? You stated that in it you'll have not to exceed. Can you explain a little further?
Yes, so I'm asking, or the proposal tonight is to adopt a dollar amount for a service. And so if the dollar amount, so again, if the disposal cost, there's a significant change in the cost of disposal, the makeup of the cost of providing the service, I'll work with the haulers and calculate what that rate should be, and we'll probably bring a information report to council saying, hey, good news, things have changed, and this is the rate that haulers will be charging in the future for this service. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Councillor Tigan.
Thank you. Just one final question. I had kind of a new guy question, and this might be a theme tonight and maybe for a couple weeks. Great coat, by the way.
Thank you.
Wondering about the Marion County directing the flow and the recent approval to send the flow to the DALs. Have we had a hearing or a brief the city council about that? That change, and if there's any impacts to, things within the city about that? I'm just curious what the status of that is.
So the change of taking waste to the DALs, this is the first that I've mentioned it to this body.
Okay.
Yeah, even the solid waste committee hasn't heard it yet.
Oh, wow, that's breaking news. Sorry.
This breaking news.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. I guess I would appreciate hearing more about it when you're ready, especially if there's, where transfer stations are, that kind of thing. So, thank you.
Any other questions? No. Dr. Brown?
No, Madam Mayor, just for clarification, and I promise not to have a conversation with the president. So if the Solid Waste Committee hasn't heard this yet, you bring it here for us to vote on it, and then it'll go there?
Let me clarify. So the proposal tonight was recommended by the Solid Waste Committee. The breaking news tonight was that general waste, what's called municipal solid waste, basically your curbside waste, could be going to the DALs, but that has nothing to do with tonight's proposal.
Okay.
That's a separate issue.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Gwynn.
I don't really have a question, but I did, having served on the Solid Waste Committee, I guess I would just like you to speak to a little bit more about who those haulers are. Because it's not, this isn't something that anyone wanted to have happen. It's a necessity, and these are small business owners who have families that they have to support. And if we don't do this tonight, they're not going to be able to continue to provide the service. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So
Do you want me to expand a little bit more on that, or so again, just a little, I guess, additional context. So within the city of Salem, we have 6 franchised haulers. Each of those haulers serves a specific or a designated service territory. They don't overlap. They don't compete with each other. In fact, they've formed the Mid-Valley Garbage and Haulers Association, Garbage and Recycling Association. So they work together. They are an association. In fact, in Marion County, there's 8. There's 2 that operate outside of the city of Salem. So they're an association that works well together. Part of, and how that ties into the medical waste is, rather than each of those haulers having their own truck, their own staff, and collecting medical waste only in their specific designated area, they've formed a subsidiary company so they can subcontract their service to another company as part of their franchise. So they've subcontracted medical waste collection to a subsidiary company that they formed called Marion Environmental Services, where then they have 1 truck, 1.5 FTE, very streamlined business, if you will, that's able to provide all the service to Marion County, and then also to the Polk County, or the Salem portion of Polk County. Did that answer your? Thank you. Yep.
Councillor Varney.
Thank you. Yeah, this is all great information. I'm curious then, does Marion Environmental Services then do their own billing? Is that how it works? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Zink. Garbage is a big deal. And we learn as we go, and we realize that some things are working well for the earth and for the people in it, and some things aren't. So change is inevitable, that's for sure. So, moving on, is there a motion on the floor? Oh, this hearing is closed, and I'll hit this if you want me to. And is there a motion on the floor? Yes, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I move staff recommendation, resolution number 2025-1, amending commercial medical waste collection rates and charges.
I'll second that.
Did you get that, City Recorder? Okay, thank you. So to your motion, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Goodbye and good riddance, Reworld. Burning garbage is terrible for our environment. It is well known that when you burn garbage, it hurts our kids, our air, everything around us. It can have significant environmental and health harms. It can release pollutants like dioxins, heavy metals, particulate matter, nitrogen oxides, and sulfur dioxide, which can contribute to respiratory issues, cancer risks, and overall poor air quality, especially for the communities who live nearby. And as a general rule, rich people don't live next to incinerators. So there is an environmental justice component by saying goodbye and good riddance to this incinerator.
Thank you, Councilor Nordyke. Any other discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Is it a motion? Resolution? Okay, thank you. Next up is item 4B. I'd like to open this hearing.
The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider a petitioner-initiated annexation of territory located at 5725 Skyline Road South and land adjacent. The applicable criteria is Salem Revised Code 260.010 G1 A, B, C, and D. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. A failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to an issue shall preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will be conducted with the staff presentation first, followed by the testimony from the following. The applicant, who is limited to 10 minutes. Affected neighborhood associations are limited to 5 minutes per association. Other interested parties are limited to 3 minutes, and the applicant's rebuttal time is limited to 5 minutes and limited to matters which were introduced during the public hearing. Thank you.
Here's the search chairperson. This is it.
Okay, staff report, go right ahead, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Jamie Donaldson, and I'm with the Community Planning and Development Department. Here to present Annexation Case 759 for property located at 5725 Skyline Road. At this time, I'd like to request the presentation, staff report, and its attachments be entered into the record. The annexation before you tonight is for territory located in southwest Salem, south of Kubler Boulevard and west of Liberty Road South, just south of the intersection of Davis Road and Skyline Road. It is located along Skyline Road, which is a minor arterial street. Here we have an aerial of the subject property, which is located at 5725 Skyline Road. It's developed with an existing single-family dwelling and has frontage on Skyline Road to the east. It's adjacent to the city limits to the west, where a portion that small sliver of a portion there between the urban growth boundary and the subject property is within the city limits, and provides access to a property to the north. The territory also includes right-of-way of Skyline Road, which is also adjacent to the city limits at the corner there, the northwest corner at the intersection of Davis Road and Skyline Road. The combined size of the territory is 1.43 acres, which includes 0.93 acres for the private property and about half an acre of adjacent right-of-way for Skyline Road. The comprehensive plan designation for the property is developing residential, which is indicated in light green. The territory is surrounded by other properties designated developing residential as well, and single-family designations in the vicinity, which are in yellow. There's one multifamily parcel to the northeast shown in orange, but predominantly it is of single-family designations, and so the corresponding zoning designation for the developing residential is RA, residential agriculture. So similarly here, we can see the territory is in a predominantly single-family area, shown in yellow, and the residential agriculture properties shown in light green. Many of the adjacent properties are still within the county, in Marion County, and so they're shown in white since they don't have a city zoning designation. In order to approve an annexation, the council needs to find that it meets the approval criteria. The first is that the annexation is exempt from voter approval, and this requires the property owners to sign an annexation petition, which the owners for the property here have done so. Second is the boundary is orderly. As shown on the map, the combined territory is contiguous to the city limits boundary, which is the faint green line, and can be served with city services. The council will decide whether to withdraw the territory from a service from the service district. In this case, in this case, the property is within the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District, and if annexed, the city will provide those services. No comments were received from the Sunny Slope Neighborhood Association, and no other public comments were received. Staff recommends that the City Council approve the annexation requests with the application of the RA residential agriculture zoning, withdraw the territory from the Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District, and staff will return with an ordinance bill for future reading for council's consideration and passage. That concludes this presentation, and I'm available to help answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for staff?
Thank you for the presentation. Can you speak to the motivation for the annexation?
I don't know at this time, but because it's contiguous to the city limits, any kind of development it would like to do would need to connect to city services.
So is the motivation from the property owner or from the city?
Not from the city. Okay. It's from the property owner.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Nishioka?
Thank you. I believe there is a house already there on this property, correct? And they are asking for this service, and they, yes,
yes, that's correct.
Anyone else? Okay, we do have someone signed up to speak online. It's Brittany Randall. And she has 10 minutes. She's the applicant. She's the applicant representative, and she has 10 minutes. So go ahead, Brittany. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and Council. Can you all hear me okay? Wonderful. I am joining you from the happiest place on earth. Sorry I'm not there in person. We had someone else who was presenting, but illness struck. So here I am. I will share my screen because I'm going to get through this presentation really quickly here. Here we go. Hopefully you can see my screen. So for your record, my name is Brittany Randall with Brand Land Use, and we're here to talk about annexation case ANXC 759 at 5725 Skyline Road South in Salem, Oregon. We're representing Nathan Edgecombe and Jeffrey Valley, who are the property owners for this property. We're excited to be here tonight. We've been working on this application with staff for a long time. We initially submitted the application on April 30th of last year. We were deemed complete in May of last year on the 29th. And the city sent their notice to Department of Revenue on December 3rd. And then we have received preliminary approval from Department of Revenue on December 11th. And then now we're here before you this evening for our hearing. So Jamie did a great job of describing the property and where it is. Councilor Nishioka is correct. There is a single family dwelling existing on the site. I liked Councilor Tigan's question about the motivation, and so I think I can speak to that a little bit more. The potential to develop the site with cottages is intriguing for the property owners, and so in order to utilize House Bill 2001, they have to annex into the city, connect to services. House Bill 2001 doesn't exist in the county, and because it's within the UGB, and orderly, contiguous to city limits, we thought it best to annex. This property is interesting. Many properties that are zoned single-family residential can go ahead and just pull building permits to construct cottage housing in the city, but this one will require an urban growth preliminary declaration. There's an interesting kind of extension of Davis Road that's shown on the transportation system plan that might, continue here to the west and sort of north. And so, a couple of more land use actions that would need to happen prior to us seeing any cottages developed on the site, but that is the but we did meet with our neighborhood association, and they're very supportive of the annexation at the time. That meeting happened a long time ago. As you saw in our timeline, we've been working on this for a while with staff. But at the time, they seemed supportive. So I wanted to share that as well. And then I'm available for any questions that you have.
Anyone have any questions? Well, thank you very much for that. Looks like we have no questions.
So ask if anyone else wants to testify.
Is there anyone present in the room who would like to testify on this matter? Seeing none, I'm going to close. Oh, Councilor Gwynn, go right ahead.
Well, I have a question. I don't know that it's necessarily for Brittany, though. My question is, if the application was complete in May, why does it take till December?
Yeah, I know where you're going with that. I can answer. In this particular case, there was an annexation that was done for the property at the corner of Davis and Skyline Road. So the surveyor had actually prepared it earlier, but it came back from DOR that we had to wait until that annexation was complete so that they could draw up the legal description that matched the other annexation now being moving the city limits. So it was just a kind of weird situation for this one, but oftentimes they do take a little bit of time because we're working with the state and have to get approvals from them.
Great question. Anyone else? Okay, in that case, I'll close the hearing. And Councilor Nordyke, to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move approval of the annexation of 1.43 acre territory located at 5725 Skyline Road South and land adjacent.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Nordyke, second by Gwynn. Any further discussion? Or to your motion? To your motion, Councillor Nordyke?
I feel satisfied by the annexation. I've reviewed the materials. I noted that there was no objection voiced by the neighborhood association, and given the location of this property, it's in the path of progress. As far as I'm concerned, it makes perfect sense. So I'm in favor of this motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Tigan.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Matthews.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Brown.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Now we have, we actually have someone who has waited since public comment online. I failed to recognize an online testifier, and she's still online with us. It's Deanna Garcia. Are you still there? Wonderful. Thank you for your patience. Oh, and you'll have 3 minutes, Deanna.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Deanna Garcia. I'm a resident of Ward 6. Good evening to all the councilors and Mayor Hoy. I received an email from the Public Affairs Director of the Siletz Tribe requesting support for the MOU to be signed by council this evening. The email was directed to me as the chair of North Lancaster Neighborhood Association. However, I did not have the capacity to consult with either of the community boards that I preside over, so I'm providing this public comment as a degular Indigenous citizen of Northeast Salem. I actually read through the MOU, and I want to express my appreciation for the language around property valuation. The valuation includes future improvements and construction. This is an important detail as this land is a potential site of a second casino for the Siletz Tribe. Should final approval actually make it through the rigorous Bureau of Indian Affairs approval process and ultimately receive Governor Kotek's blessing, it will have a tremendous impact on the Northeast Salem community and infrastructure. I personally support the MOU as it represents a true partnership between the City of Salem and the Siletz Tribe. I understand there is quite a bit of state and or federal owned properties within Salem's boundaries. My hope is this MOU will function as a stepping stone in future negotiations with other entities with similarly owned properties. I also hope this helps alleviate some of the financial burden the city is experiencing with the current budget. I asked the council to consider supporting signing the MOU. Actually, I need to change that. I hope you consider supporting and signing it after continued discussion and potential edits that were mentioned earlier in the meeting. All right. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Deanna. Anything further? No, not on that testimony, right, Dan? Okay, we're moving on then to special orders of business. We have a Public Works reaccreditation and presentation with Brian Martin.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Councilors. Brian Martin, Public Works Director. Tonight we're fortunate to be joined by Tina Nelson, who is here to acknowledge the Salem Public Works Department on behalf of the American Public Works Association. Tina is the APWA Region 9 Director, representing Alaska, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado. This is a very large area, and we're pleased that she's able to be here with us tonight, presenting this in person. Salem was first accredited by APWA in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. Everything was conducted online at that time. APWA is important for us because it confirms that we are either meeting or exceeding national standards in our daily delivery of service. For the reaccreditation process, which we're talking about this evening, in October 2024, we elected to have an on-site review of our practices. This was our first of what I hope will be many reaccreditations in the upcoming years. I want to thank our management team, Mark Bechtel, Alan Dannon, Robert Chandler, Jue Zhao, Alicia Blaylock for guiding this process, and a special thank you to Keith Bondog Wynn for his extraordinary efforts in putting the documentation together. We had many Public Works staff as well as many partners and other departments that participated this year. We're very appreciative of their insights and collaboration. It has been a lot of work to go through the process, but it helps us ensure our policies and procedures are in order and up to date. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Tina. When Tina concludes her presentation, I would like to get a photo of Tina with our mayor and our Public Works team to recognize this important certification for our department.
Thank you, Brian, for that very nice introduction. So, good evening. I'm Tina Nelson, although my full name is Christina. That's what my passport does say. Good evening, Mayor, council members, city manager, and staff, and everybody else that's listening in. It was quite the Public Works night tonight, hearing about the work of the Public Works Department, the unsung heroes working on the force main, and as I understand, those working now on the water main. There is nothing that Public Works doesn't jump in to do. I thank you for the invitation, and I very much appreciate this opportunity. It is my pleasure to have this opportunity to provide a few words for you. Public Works is my passion, and representing APWA is a true honor. One of the privileges of being on the National Board of Directors is to get to connect with others within the industry and get to visit, like here at the City of Salem and other parts of the Northwest when there are exciting, interesting, and maybe not so good APWA, Public Works type activities. So what is APWA, American Public Works Association? The American Public Works Association was formed in 1937, and it's a not-for-profit organization, international, with about 32,000 members involved in the field of public works. And APWA serves its members by promoting professional excellence and public awareness through education, advocacy, and exchange of knowledge. APWA is headquartered in Kansas City, Missouri, and has an office also in Washington, D.C., 62 chapters and 97 branches across North America, and that is United States and Canada, and also affiliates in Northern Europe as well as New Zealand and Australia. APWA is governed by a board of 17 directors, a chief executive officer, and 52 staff. Here in the state of Oregon, there is one chapter, the Oregon chapter, with about 700 individual members representing both the public and the private sector, 17 of them here from the city of Salem. The Oregon chapter provides a lot of excellent training and networking opportunities for its members, applicable to all that is public works, from young leader activities to conferences, leadership training, continuing evaluation, continuing credits, maintenance school. And this spring, at the very end of April and into early May, the chapter will gather right here at the Salem Convention Center for their spring conference. That brings about 400 public works professionals together to listen to technical presentations and learn and share stories and learn from each other to better serve the public works profession. I've been in the public works profession for 35 years, and serving the public well has always been and still is my goal. Public Works has many responsibilities, as you heard today, and the ability to serve well comes from a well-organized approach. Accreditation and staying accredited are steps in that direction. It takes an effort to get there, but it brings back dividends. I also work for an accredited organization, Kitsap County Public Works in the state of Washington. I know the benefits it is, but I also know what it takes to get there. So why is it good to be accredited? Your Public Works Director mentioned a few things, but it is a great mark of professionalism, indicating that a public works agency as an organization has made a commitment to continuous improvement in the delivery of public works operations and services in the community that it serves. Accreditation recognizes an agency's policies, procedures, and practices, which have been evaluated against nationally recognized management practices determined to be appropriate for the specific agency. Accreditation benefits an organization with increased efficiency. Documents and practices are in one place, improved processes and operations, succession planning, retention of knowledge, as well as assist with information when somebody is new. We have it gathered all in one place. It proves some communication, and it's also a professional recognition. Your Public Works Department was evaluated by a team of experienced public works professionals from California and Nebraska. They reviewed 139 practices to confirm the department's compliance with internationally recognized management practices that are applicable to the City of Salem's operation and responsibility. And I am very happy to report that your Public Works Department received 99% compliance with all applicable practices. That means that APWA's Accreditation Council has granted full reaccreditation to the City of Salem Public Works Department. Not only was the department complete, but the evaluation team also recognized the department for a model practice. This model practice will be shared with other agencies throughout North America who are themselves working toward accreditation or are looking to improve. The model practice has to do with occupied facilities and employee spaces. Here is what the Accreditation Council says. The APWA evaluation team has identified this practice as a model practice to be considered as an excellent example. The Salem Operations Building and Police Building have gender-neutral workspaces in lockers, shower facilities, and restrooms, allowing for changing gender demographics. The Salem facility also, drawings included in this practice are very easy to understand with their unique color coding showing workspaces. And the link to Salem's Outlook calendar allows for easy use for serving spaces for meetings and training. There are 217 accredited agencies in North America, and Salem is one of 4 in the state of Oregon. City of Eugene, City of West Lynn, and City of Beaverton are the other. So thank you, the City Council, Mayor, and the City Manager for supporting your Public Works Department in this endeavor and the work that it took, and recognizing their staff for setting a great example to those that count on them and count on their service, those that live and work in the City of Salem. So I would like this opportunity to present this plaque to your Public Works Director and to your Mayor. And is that the time we can?
Good, let's do it. And if we could have our managers that put all their efforts into making this happen, come up and get a photo with the mayor, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again to Public Works. Way to go. Great work. Moving on to item 5B. Do I read something?
You just ask for staff to comments.
Okay.
This will be Brian Martin, Airport.
Director Martin, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I'm going to invite John Pascal, our airport manager, up to give a briefing on the item and be there for questions for the council.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director. Continuing in the Public Works vein, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm John Pascal. I'm the airport manager for the City of Salem, and I'd like to welcome the new councilors who I haven't worked with yet, and welcome to new Mayor Hoy. I look forward to working with all of you in the coming years, and would invite you out to the airport at your convenience for a terminal and airfield tour. If you haven't been out there, it's quite a place to see. Tonight, before you tonight is Ordinance Bill 1-25, which would amend Salem Revised Code Chapter 9, allowing for the collection of additional landing fees and overnight parking fees at the Salem Airport. This ordinance change and the proposed operational policy driving the change is in response to the City Council's mandate for the airport to generate additional revenue in an effort to get out from under the city general fund support as quickly as possible. This is not a unique to Salem issue. Airports across the United States, in particular general aviation and small commercial service airports like Salem, find their operational expenses continually going up while revenue fails to keep pace. Historically, airports would only charge landing fees to commercial aircraft using the airport to make money, primarily airlines and cargo operators. Over time, airports started billing general aviation aircraft as well, in particular business jets, for the use of the airfield, as those aircraft contribute to the wear and tear on the airfield's asphalt, marking, lights, signs, and similar infrastructure. Salem is proposing to follow in the footsteps of dozens of airports across the country and charge transient aircraft operators, transit meaning visiting aircraft operators, I lost some place here, for the use of Salem's airport. In Oregon, Medford Airport is already collecting general aviation landing fees. Redmond and Eugene are in process like Salem. I expect that those two airports will also implement similar programs in 2025, and all three of those are well-established commercial service airports. As noted in the staff report, locally based aircraft, military, government, and emergency services aircraft would be exempt from paying landing fees, as would all aircraft that weigh less than 7,000 pounds max gross landing weight. For reference, aircraft that are greater than 7,000 pounds are generally larger twin turboprop aircraft and just about all jet-powered aircraft. So it's a little frame of reference there. That wouldn't include all the small aircraft that use the airfield for flight training and so on, which is about 98% of our traffic. Excuse me. Operationally, the airport would contract with an external entity that would install the needed equipment to track aircraft landings 24/7, would automate the billing and collection of fees, keep their approximate 20% of the revenue collected for installing the equipment and managing the program for the city, and then return the remaining revenue to the airport. So this would be a revenue-only program. The functionality of the equipment used to track local flights is the same as that used for FlightAware, Flight Tracker, and other real-time aircraft tracking services worldwide. Salem is not proposing to use anything that does not currently exist in the global marketplace. Additionally, this equipment will help the airport respond to noise complaints from citizens when aircraft are operating outside of normal air traffic control tower hours, which is an added operational and customer service benefit at no additional cost. I hope this helps provide a little bit of additional background and detail, but as always, I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any clarification.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much. Do you have an estimate as to what kind of revenue? It actually does say right here on page 1, I apologize, the fees are anticipated to capture between $50,000 and $100,000 annually. Can you just briefly explain how did you arrive at that estimate?
We took, we went back about 18 months prior and tried to assess the number of aircraft that we thought were 7,000 pounds or greater. It's sort of a nebulous study because we don't really have any good tracking data, but working with some other airports and with the companies that provide this type of a service, we estimated that roughly 500 to 1,000 of our 45,000 operations per year would meet these criteria, and then we used an average weight based on the size of those aircraft. So a 7,000 pound aircraft, of course, is going to pay a smaller fee than a Gulfstream business jet that's 100,000 pounds. So we just kind of used what we thought was a weighted average. So there was some back of the napkin math that went into that. It's a conservative estimate, like we do in the city of Salem. We budget conservatively. Our hope is that it will generate significant revenue, and certainly that will grow over time. But until we get into the program and actually have the ability to track it, it's a little bit tricky to estimate early.
Yes, of course.
am also curious, how did you determine the fees? You mentioned that Medford already has these fees, and Eugene and I believe another city mentioned is working on developing fees. Are the fees that we are going to impose if this motion passes, are they going to be comparable to those?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, this program is going to be modeled almost identically to what Medford is charging. So there are different weight variations in aircraft. Could be 5,000 pounds, 7,000 pounds, 12,500 pounds. We have to draw a line someplace. Medford's program is currently at 7,000 pounds. That seems to be kind of the industry standard for airports that I contacted across the country. We spent all summer doing due diligence trying to determine what we wanted our program to look like, so that we weren't charging too much and we weren't charging not enough. So this program would be almost identical to what Medford is operating at today.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. One more. This is very helpful. Obviously, the first time you put a program like this into effect, you are going to do some back-of-the-napkin calculations. I understand that. For how long do you anticipate having this schedule of fees in effect? And what I mean is, do you intend on coming back to us in a year after you've had an opportunity to collect more data to assess whether that fee level is appropriate?
Yes, I would anticipate, so if we can get this started in the spring, late winter, spring of this year, that come every budget season, which would give us about 9 to 12 months to analyze the program. If we've lost any service, if our operations have dipped, if the weight limit, what that's generating in terms of revenue. So we want to actually take the real-time data, do an analysis, and then modify the program as part of the budget every year.
Yes, Councilor Matthews.
So obviously you mentioned the 7,000 would be sort of the minimum limit for this, and we have like an overall projection of what we think it'll be annually, but I don't really see like a breakdown as far as kind of what would a 7,000 pound plane cost to land on the opposition to, say, our largest one with a Velo.
Yeah, so I didn't include that level of detail in this first reading, but in the second reading, we'll also be bringing forth a fee resolution that will increase the landing fees, and there are 2 levels of landing fees that are what are called signatory landing fees, and those are charged a little bit less. Those are aircraft that are based at the Salem Airport or that operate under an agreement like a Velo Airlines. They would pay a lower rate of $2.25 per 1,000 pounds max gross weight, and then transient aircraft would be at $3 per 1,000 pounds. So a 7,000 pound aircraft, 1,000 pounds is 7 times $3 would be a $21 landing fee. A 100,000 pound aircraft would be 100 times $3, that'd be $300. So it's really a fair system. It's a fair way to charge aircraft that are presumably doing more wear and tear on your facility to pay more as they go.
Yes, Councilor Nordyke. Nishioka, thank you.
On here too. Thank you, Mayor Hoy. Mr. Pascal, thank you for giving us those figures, and also I would appreciate a little bit of explanation on the discussion from the Airport Advisory Commission in the sense of trying to determine 5,000 to 7,000, and that you were using kind of a collective and you had introduced it as 5. So you might just speak to that.
Yeah, that's correct, Councilor. So yeah, my initial plan was to propose a 5,000 pound minimum weight limit, and that would essentially capture some of the newer, lighter business jets that are in the marketplace now. So that was kind of what our floor was proposed at, through discussions with the Airport Advisory Commission. There was a lot of back and forth and kind of teeth gnashing over what the right number is. Ultimately, where you draw a line, you're going to draw it in front of somebody and behind somebody else. But their recommendation, and they understood the need to generate revenue, but their recommendation was to raise that number to 7,000 pounds, since that's what Medford currently uses. And that would exclude some of the aircraft in the valley that they felt like would use the Salem Airport for flight training, and it would get complicated on how many times we would charge that aircraft for a landing. So we did did some more back of the napkin math and determined that the number of aircraft that exist in the marketplace between 5,000 and 7,000 pounds is really pretty small. There's about a dozen to 15 aircraft, and I would guess that very few of them operate at the Salem airport. So we felt comfortable that the recommendation of 7,000 pounds was a good place to start, with the added monitoring of the program as we go to see if that feels like the right number.
Yes, Councillor Nishioka.
Yes, just to add a second question, I'd also like to have you help understand that we will not need to have any additional staff to manage this program. This is going to be taken care of by this company. You might explain that too.
That is correct. Yes, thank you, Councilor. That's a great point. Up until recently, it was very difficult, if not impossible, for airports to track landings. There just was no mechanism to do so, particularly if you didn't have an air traffic control tower at all, or if you didn't have a 24-hour air traffic control tower. And even then, their job is not to track aircraft operations for the airport. Their job is to manage air traffic and keep the airplanes from hitting one another. So short of really just having somebody sitting in a lawn chair, with a camera, and I say that sort of tongue in cheek, but that's really how Medford did it for a long time, is they captured everybody that they could, and they had a half-time position that did just that, and then had to go through all the machinations of sending out buildings and collecting revenue. But technology has advanced to a point now where we can all flight track aircraft all across the country in real time. So that technology exists that allows us to track 24/7 who comes into our airport, who stays overnight, when they departed, where they may have buzzed Salem, in the early morning hours, and some of those things that we can't respond to today. And so that technology has really allowed airports to move further along in tracking aircraft that are using the airport and then billing them accordingly. The revenue-only opportunity here is really obviously attractive to us, because they put all the cost into it, they manage the program for us, and then we just get revenue. And so all the other airport managers that I've talked to have spoken very, very highly of the program. They're thrilled with it. And again, we don't like to be first movers in these spaces generally, but we do have a need for increased revenue. And these are some folks that have just been able to use our facility at no cost for the past 100 years.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Further discussion? Yes, Councillor Varney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say I think this is a great idea, because I think not knowing what aircraft we have coming in is a security risk, and I think this is really a good idea.
I agree. There actually are some other benefits. That's another one too. And staff will actually have access to the dashboard, so we can look in real time at any given time who's operating right now in our airspace. We can come in the morning and see who operated the night before. Again, currently we get noise complaints. We had one, I think council was alerted of a noise complaint recently, and we just can't respond to that. There's no air traffic control tower in operation that time of the morning, and we have no way really to look back and see who that was or what altitude that aircraft was flying. So there's a lot of great benefits. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Great, thank you very much for the presentation. And this item will be coming up again under Section 7, so we'll be revisiting this topic then. So moving on to information reports.
Actually, we had 3.3A got pulled, so that's...
Oh, 3.3, I apologize. I was going by my notes, not what happened in the meeting, so sorry about that. We're going to move to item 5C.
So this was item 3.3A, the Memorandum of Understanding with the Siletz Tribe, Dan Atchison, City Attorney. I've just got a few comments, and I'll turn it over to Council's discussion. The city was first contacted by the Siletz Tribe in July of 2024 regarding this agreement. The city had worked on a separate agreement involving a tribal trust property for the Siletz on Blossom Drive starting in 2021, and through my delays, it didn't get executed until 2023. That property was for affordable housing that's since been developed by the tribe. I'd like to talk a little bit about what the MOU isn't and what it is. The MOU does not concern any specific property. So this agreement is just a non-binding memorandum of understanding that sets up a framework for the city and the tribe to work towards when a specific property becomes tribal trust property and they ask us for services. This sets up some framework for how we would provide those services, but it does not concern any specific property or any specific use on any specific property. It doesn't signify the city's approval or opposition to a potential casino in Salem. What it does, as I said, is it establishes a framework for the provision of city services for Siletz Tribal Trust properties, such as utilities, police, fire, and ambulance services. When a tribal trust property is developed, they're not subject to a property tax, they're not subject to our land use code or our building code. But those developments do impact the city and the community around those developments. So we will work with them on off-site improvements that may need to be made. We'll work with them on utility connections for stormwater, water, sewer, and things like that. And they will pay us for those utilities. They will pay us for our services. The way that payment is worked out is it's going to be essentially a payment in lieu of property taxes. So it's a tax-exempt property, but the assessor still provides a real market valuation of that property. So we can convert that real market valuation into what the assessed value would have been, and that will be essentially their annual payment to us. So as the property is developed and the valuation of that property increases, their payment for a payment in lieu of property taxes will increase as well. In addition, through this agreement, they will agree to pay for our city operations fee, which is applicable to all utility account holders. They will pay our SDCs, our system development charges, for our different types of utilities, such as transportation, sewer and water, and things like that. The agreement recognizes that individual trust properties will present specific challenges or issues when they're brought into getting city services. And so the agreement recognizes that you're going to need a specific agreement for each property. And so when those issues arise with a specific property regarding what the use might be and where it's located and what impacts it might have on the transportation system or our utility system, we can address those impacts as part of that agreement. In working on this agreement at the request of the Siletz Tribe, there's no intent by the City of Salem to disrespect the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. We've had a very good working relationship with the Grand Ronde over the years. They've helped us in a number of ways regarding inadvertent discovery plans and a number of other issues throughout the community. And I personally deeply appreciate the relationship we've had with the Grand Ronde, and our work in this agreement was at the request of the Siletz. It had really nothing to do, from my perspective, with affecting our relationship with the Grand Ronde, and I'm sorry to see the Grand Ronde's letter, but I understand where they're coming from. I will turn it over to council discussion.
Yes, Councilor Tigan.
Madam Mayor, I'll start since I pulled this from the calendar. I'll go back to first, thank you for the patience for the folks who've stayed through the entirety of the conversation this evening. It's been quite a variety show here at the Salem City Council. And this is just for some of the folks on the council, this is just our second meeting. And so I really want to respect the process that the city attorney has gone through with the Siletz to come to this memorandum of agreement. And I also felt like there's enough history in this item that I felt like we probably needed to talk about it as a group before we move forward. If we just approved it on a consent calendar, it's an implied, 8-0 vote. And it could be that we all support it, but it felt important enough to discuss. And I'll say from my initial reading of it, it felt, as you described it, City Attorney, just an agreement to agree later without a specific project in mind. And to the commenter's point, Ms. Garcia, it does provide a nice framework that could be copy and pasted and sent to other non-taxable entities in our city. And certainly that came to my mind as well. So I look forward to this conversation. I really just wanted to make sure we take due care with it.
Thank you, Councillor Tigan. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness in all of that. Does anyone have any comment? Councillor Nishioka?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to thank our city attorney for what I believe has been a lot of work that's happened previously to bringing this forward, and to all of those that are here in the audience. And I also thank Councillor Tigan for pulling it so we had the opportunity to discuss. And I know that this is, it's kind of new territory for us. So thank you.
Councillor Matthews.
I just think it's important to kind of reiterate what City Attorney said, that this really does not imply any type of support or opposition for any type of future development or casino, as it's been mentioned here tonight, going in any property. And so I just think that's really important that we don't link these things completely. They are not completely linked in that way. So.
Anyone else? Councillor Tigan.
Yeah, I would like to just speak specifically to the information we received later this afternoon from the city attorney. We have a revision in the file that was suggested to us, and I just want to hear from the city attorney what the state of the language is in the MOU, or the MOA. MOU, excuse me. It says that the following new language was added to the issue and recommendation sections of the staff report. Quote, City Council's authorization of this MOU does not establish or imply support or opposition to a possible casino located within the Salem area. So is that language in your staff report, or are we suggesting that to be added to the MOU before being returned back to the Siletz Tribe?
Councillor Tigan, hearing you read that out loud makes me realize that was really written by an attorney, wasn't it?
Indeed.
It flows off the tongue.
Yeah, it does.
That language came about from a discussion with the mayor, council president, and city manager, and myself at our pre-council meeting this morning. Given the issues at hand, we felt it was important that council made clear that their intent wasn't to link this with a potential casino, that the city doesn't have a position on a potential casino, and right now it's just in the issue and recommendation. I don't know with absolute certainty, that the Siletz Tribe would agree to that language. I don't think they would, but that's up to council's consideration. Obviously, two parties have to agree on a contract, and so if council were to suggest adding that to the contract, we would have to reach back out to the Siletz and have that discussion.
Something further, Councillor Tigan?
Well, I'm thinking about this in real time, so I apologize. I think we all recognize that we're in a position of trying to balance a relationship on the record. Here we are, working at it in real time. And I think that we have a letter from the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde asking us to put a statement like that in this MOU. And I personally am not, I don't know how to balance those two requests in this moment. And so I feel like it's something that we should, if we have the ability to confer about this a little bit more and make this decision later, that feels right to me, but I want to have more of the conversation with the council.
Councillor Nordyke.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Tigan. I appreciate your thoughtfulness throughout this process. Is there a time-sensitive need to complete this MOU?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Well,
not on the city's part, certainly.
Well, with that in mind, I would be in favor of tabling this so that we could confer further with the tribes and our council.
Councilor, you would need to make that into a motion.
I can. All right. I move to table Agenda item 3.3A, the Memorandum of Understanding with the Siletz Tribe concerning city services to Siletz Tribal Trust land until after we've had further time to confer with the tribes and the city attorney's office.
Second.
Councilor Nishioka?
I was just going to say, do we need to say it's 5C or 3.3? Does it matter?
It's clear. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I would just note that we will bring it back to council at the appropriate time. There's no date set in that motion.
Councilor Varney, did you have something?
Well, I'm supportive of giving us a chance to review and ask more questions. I really appreciate that. I'm trying to think of what I was going to say about it. I appreciate our attorneys saying that we will need separate agreements for each property that will be developed. And I also appreciate the addition to the staff report, since it's public record. I think it just serves to at least have a statement that's in the record. So that's it. Thanks.
Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Gwynn.
I was just going to call for a point of order. Councilor Nordyke didn't have an opportunity to speak to her motion.
Oh, thank you, Councilor Gwynn. Councilor Nordyke, to your motion.
Sure, thank you. Based on the conversation we've received tonight, the testimony from the tribal representatives we heard from this evening, and given just the overall sensitivity of this matter, I think it would be appropriate to table it for further conversation with the appropriate persons to bring back at the appropriate time. I deliberately didn't say by the next meeting, because that is not about rushing this process. We don't want to rush things. We don't want to disturb long existing relationships. I'm mindful of the fact that American governments do not have a great history of respecting the rights of sovereign nations. So this should be treated with respect. And I think it's appropriate that we just take a pause, look at this a little bit further, and come back when we have a little more information.
Anyone else? So, to the substitute motion?
It's not a substitute motion. We didn't have a motion on the floor. Apologize. The only motion on the floor is Councilor Nordyke's motion to table this item. So,
Any discussion on that further? Okay, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Tigan.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Matthews.
Aye.
Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Brown.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Moving on to information reports. Item 6A, purchases approved for November 2024. Item 6B, planning administrator decision, a replat, Class 3 site plan review with Class 2 adjustments for 2 proposed short-term lodging hotel buildings approved. And item 6C, Salem City Council committee assignments for 2025. Any discussion on any of that? Thank you. Okay. Moving on to ordinances. To you.
Ordinance Bill number 125, an ordinance relating to the Salem Willamette Valley Airport, amending SRC sections 9.005, .040, .095, .100, .120, .215, .240, and Appendix 1 of SRC Chapter 9. And we
Thank
need a-
you.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, we need a motion. Thank you.
Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you. I move to advance ordinance Bill 125 to second reading.
Second.
Motion by Nishioka, second by Gwynn. Any discussion? Okay, will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Matthews.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Brown.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike. Counselor Barney.
Aye.
Counselor Tigan.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. Next up,
Ordinance Bill number 225, an ordinance designating the Criterion Schoolhouse located at 2330 17th Street Northeast, Salem, Oregon, as a local historic resource.
motion, Counselor Nishioka?
Thank you. I move ordinance bill number 2-25 designating the Criterion Schoolhouse as a local historic resource and schedule a public hearing.
Second.
Nishioka, second by Matthews. Any discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Matthews.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Brown.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike. Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Tigan.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Mayor Julie Hoy.
Aye. All right, we are moving on to public comment. We have 3 folks signed up. And when I call your name, please come forward to the podium. As you begin your remarks, please state your name and your address or ward for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. When you have 1 minute left, the light on the podium will flash yellow. The light will turn red when your time has expired. I'd like to call Pamela, I believe it's Kreitz.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Pamela Kreitz. I live in Ward 4. Unfortunately, problems I've encountered in Oregon with bias, discrimination, hate, racism, and intimidation caused me to bring my prayer to council. After trying to raise my problems with bias, discrimination, hate, racism, and intimidation for over 26 years to Oregon United States leaders like United States agencies, DOJ, DOL, EEOC, FBI, FCC, FTC, HIPAA, Oregon's United States Oregon senators and representatives, Oregon agencies like the AG, BOLI, DAS, DOJ, LRU, unions, Oregon State Bar, the United States District Court, DOJ Civil Rights Directors, and DOJ's hotline, who referred me to council here today. I found these entities are unwilling to take action to resolve reported problems. Since discussing these problems exceeds today's 3-minute limit, my prayer is to request interviews with subject matter experts, the Salem Council, and victims such as myself to discuss solutions where prayers for help are more than tally marks for reporting bias, discrimination, hate, racism, and intimidation in Oregon's employment, private and public sector services. My question today as council is, will any of you hear my prayer and request for help to participate in these interviews? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have Nolan Wright. Either one, Nolan. There's one on each corner. Nice.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm here to tell a story about my cousin Karina.
Interrupt. Could you please state your name and either your ward or your address?
Of course. My name is Nolan. I am from 900 State Street, Salem, Oregon, the university, but I'm here to share a story about my cousin, Karina. I grew up with my cousin in rural Wisconsin. My cousin has intellectual and developmental disabilities, Down syndrome. Moving to college, I met a lot of people that wanted to get involved with these communities, and so did I. So I started a partnership with Shangri-La of Oregon, a local nonprofit in the Salem area, as well as Special Olympics. I went home over break, and I spoke with my cousin, and she told me about this amazing organization in Washington called Best Buddies. She was meeting a lot of friends, taking a leadership opportunity in the club, and finding these wonderful connections with college students from a local college in the area. So I figured, why can't I start something down here in Salem of the same nature? So a bunch of emails later, I reached out and started a chapter at Willamette. We are 28 members strong. We have a few over here. A few more got hungry and decided to go eat, but we're 28 members strong, and we're incredibly excited to get involved in the Salem community. Thank you all for listening to my story, and I look forward to having our site coordinator come and share a few words about the organization. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I'd like to call Hannah Mack. Just be sure to state your name and either your address or your ward.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Mack. I'm actually a resident of Portland, but I am the lead program manager for Best Buddies in Oregon. So my role here is to facilitate and encourage and uplift all the chapters that we have in Oregon. We have chapters from Hillsborough all the way down to Medford, and we are looking to spread the mission of inclusion all over the state of Oregon. I'd like to share some statistics with you regarding individuals with disabilities, intellectual and developmental disabilities to be specific. 91% of primary care doctors report receiving no training in IDD or intellectual with developmental or disability, individual with a developmental disability. I am falling asleep. 60% of students with IDD are bullied. 65% of students with IDD graduate compared to an 86% of students without IDD. 84% of individuals with IDD are unemployed. IDD is a condition that leads to a person being twice as likely to be living in poverty. The average social circle of an individual with IDD is 6 people compared to an average 125 for an individual without IDD. And people with IDD are 3 times as likely to be victims of crime. The way that Oregon Best Buddies tries to combat these alarming statistics is by taking our programming into the school districts and into the community. So my job specifically is to run and set up chapters, kind of like clubs in schools, where we encourage organic and authentic relationships between one individual with IDD and one individual without IDD. And I manage chapters all the way from elementary school through adulthood. And we are definitely looking for more opportunities to partner with the community in specific locations, especially the Salem area, and be able to just show people that being friends with everybody, all shapes and sizes, regardless of disability, race, anything that might make you different. It's good to be friends with all sorts of people, and it's part of what makes us human. And so if anybody has any interest in partnering with the program that we have, please feel free to reach out to me. You can find my contact information on the Oregon site on the Best Buddies website, and I am more than happy to reach out and buy you a coffee.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Well, thank you all. It's a pleasure to serve together with you. I call this meeting adjourned.